Hey guys, Darren Collier, coach of Wise and Squads, and welcome back to another captain's video. Heading into round 17, we have finally got all our weapons back off the buys, and we've got a full 22 to pick from. So selections for captains are going to be a little bit more tricky in the sense that we have a lot more options to consider, but it also means we can look for that bigger ceiling to finish off the year. So that's what we're going to be looking for this week, and I think there are some really, really good options that we're looking at this week. So let's get straight into it. But before we do, quickly looking at how I performed last week, I was 15th overall in the weekly challenge last week. Performed pretty well with the score 1772. Pretty much the thing that caught me up the most was having Brodie Grundy at number 3. He was pretty vital with that big, massive score. Obviously, was the equal highest score of the round, and that obviously boosted me up a fair bit in terms of the rankings. It is getting pretty spicy now at the top there with Fantasy Nut at their number 1, Mitch Casey with at the Bull Boys, and I'm just sitting at number 4th. Still a little ways back, 150 points definitely is still a big climb to catch those guys, but with 8 rounds still to go in the season, I'm going to be trying my best, that's for sure. So we'll see how we sort of track throughout the remainder of the season. But let's get into my captain's picks this week. I'll make it as quick as possible for you, this video, guys. So number 1, it's pretty obvious where we're all going here. It is 90% owned, and he's 90% selected at number 1, and that is Bailey Smith. He is an absolute monster, fresh off the bye, should have got over his sort of hamstring injuries that he had before the bye, and obviously we've known he's been massive throughout this entire season. He's got one of the easiest matchups with the Richmond Tigers, who have been giving up massive scores, as we are aware. Now, the thing that I ultimately like about Bailey Smith is that while Richmond aren't the best matchup for midfielders particularly, he loves to go back and get these +6s in the back half by either a kick in or just chipping around the back half and just sprints and gets wide so he can get that +6. And the teammates are not afraid to hand it to him, even though he is a bit of a bit of a turnover merchant. They do not mind giving it to him. So he is a huge option this week, whether he's your VC or a C. It doesn't really matter. He should be part of your plans unless you're looking to be really fancy with it. But I still think he is something that you should be considering. He'd definitely be on my plans, whether that's a VC or C. I'm still toying up with how I want to go, but he's definitely part of those plans because he could be on for a 140. If you are going in him with a C, I would be putting your line fairly high, like that 130 sort of range. We know how good he is and how easily he hits these 130 plus scores quite regularly. So have your line pretty high because it could be massive. I do really feel that we're due for a massive score. We haven't seen a 150 plus for a little while. So yeah, I think we're due for one at some stage. And that could be this week with a lot of top 9 teams versus the bottom 9 teams. So there's going to be a lot of blowouts and a lot of people off buys. Means there shouldn't be any rests coming their way. So I really like Bailey Smith. Another thing as well, he is averaging 124.4 at home so far this season, only dropping below 100 once, which was the last time he played at home against Brisbane Lions, where he was still the top scorer for his team with that 94. But yeah, they got pretty badly beaten by 40-odd points in that game, and Brisbane just shut down every single play that they tried to make. So with a much easier matchup, we've seen it in the past with them, he should be fine. So have him in your plans. Number 2, I have Jai Caldwell. He has been massive since coming back from injury. He's averaging like 115 in his last 5, I believe. And he's up against the second best matchup in the Gold Coast Suns for inside mids. There's never going to be any attention that goes to him, and he is just getting it done at the moment with a lot of marks, a lot of tackles, and a lot of disposals. So he sits there nicely at number 2 for me, and he is obviously the biggest trading option if you're looking at a trading option this week. So he is there at number 2. Again, he's up against the Gold Coast Suns, who have been giving out some massive numbers to inside mids. You don't have to look too far to find out where that's coming from. So yeah, I definitely would be jumping on board there. Number 3 is Bailey Smith's teammate in Max Holmes. Pretty safe as houses, no pun intended there. But yeah, he should go well. He should bounce back from his pretty poor score the week prior to the bye. It's just what he sort of does. He has this one bad game and then he sort of pops the week after. So I'm expecting him with a decent matchup. he should go well. Very similar to Bailey Smith, he loves to get on the outside of the game as well, as well as have that inside clearance game. He gets on the outside, gets the +6s off halfback, half forward, on the wing. Doesn't really matter. He just works hard to get the ball in his hands. And if Geelong decide to just chip it around a fair bit, he should be amongst that as well. So I like what Max Holmes could be. And if you're wanting to be able to point a difference, you could go with a Max Holmes VC or C instead of a Bailey Smith, because it could go both ways. So that's my number 1, 2, and 3. Number 4, I've got someone who probably isn't hugely selected this week, is 9%, and that is Noah Anderson. And if you've been sticking around for the channel for a while, you know that I'm not a huge Noah Anderson fan, but I have a feeling that he's going to be pretty good this week. He's up against Essendon. Essendon are the third easiest midfield matchup for over the last 10 matches. We've seen massive scores. They just do not care and do not try and stop any midfielder. So if any midfielder is going to go massive against them, it has to be Noah Anderson, in my opinion. I know people maybe look at Noah, I took Miller or Matt Rao. I just think Noah Anderson's that guy. He's the captain of the side, and he's just going to get it done. He's also averaging 114 at Marvel so far this year with 2 matches against Richmond and St Kilda. He's obviously got a better matchup than both of those, so he should be a pretty safe 115, if not even a bit higher than that. Just reading out some scores that have been scored against Essendon just in the last 4. Caleb Sarong, 137. Max Holmes, 131. Bailey Smith, 136. George Hewitt, 125. And Hugh McCluggage, 152. Just in the last 4 matches, they give up massive points, all pretty much over that 125 mark to the primary midfielders. Don't give any attention. The only flag I will say is that Essendon should be getting their tagger back in, I can't remember his first name, but Durham, the Verb himself, he should be back this week as long as he gets through training, and that could mean he gets some attention there. I'll sort of see how that plays out throughout the weekend. If that looks like it's going to come true, then I'll probably drop Noah Anderson out of my top 5, just because he does rely on a lot of disposals to get his points. And if he gets attention, that pretty much knocks him out in that scenario. So I would remove him in that sense, but I really like him at number 4 as a bit of a more unique option. Number 5, I have got the big Darcy himself in Sam Darcy. He should have a massive game against North Melbourne tonight, Thursday night. He should kick a bag, honestly. North do not have a key back that is with any chance of stopping this man at full stretch. They give up so much height. We saw him early in the year, and he only kicked that 1-goal, but that was against Kerr, and obviously had Comben back there. They don't have either of those guys back there. They've got guys like I'm trying to think of names. Toby Pink, and what's his name? I can't remember his name. He just got traded recently, but either way, no one's going to stop him. So I think he's going to easily kick a few bags this tonight. Should be on track for a big game, and we've seen him in the past he had 7 goals back into last season at Marvel, and that was a 133. So I think this is going to be in the same sort of realm as that. Anything below 130, I think is pretty much a failed pick for Sam Darcy in this role and in this matchup for them. He also should go into the midfield, and we know that he will be massively advantaged in that midfield, especially because he will be up against the likes of, I believe it will be Darling. I don't think he got dropped. I don't think he's injured. Oh, no, sorry. Darling is injured, so he will be out. So they will be relying on a second-rate ruckman to be able to go up against Sam Darcy, who is massive, right? He's going to win out a lot of hitouts, especially with Tim English under a bit of an injury cloud as well. That could mean that Sam Darcy spends a little bit more time in the ruck, which only gives him more access to more hitouts, more disposals, and him around the ball generally is a pretty goose thing. So I think he could have a massive game tonight, and is a valid VC option if you wanted to take a stab in the dart, because it could be a generational scoring ability from him tonight. If he was to get on the right end of a few goals, he could be on track to kick 10 tonight, if not more realistically. So I have really big hopes for him tonight. As a not owner, I am scared, but I think he will go well. So that is my top 5. Probably looks a little bit different to most, but that's just where my my research led me to. So, but well, I'll finish off with my top. Oh, sorry, the rest of my top 10. So I've got number 6. I have gone with Nick Martin. Now he does scare me a little bit because I'm not seeing the evidence to say in the data that he will go absolutely massive this week. But he obviously has the capacity to go well. Obviously, the Gold Coast Suns are one of the easiest matchups for midfielders. He's not exactly a midfielder, but we know Nick Martin. He works so hard, has a huge amount of time on ground, and he can rack up the pill like no other. But just because I just don't see him having that huge ceiling this week, just because the data isn't there for it. When we VC'd him against the likes of Richmond were the easiest matchup for wingers. Gold Coast Suns really are just a flat neutral matchup for that sort of side of things. So I'm just not seeing the evidence there to go, he's going to have a blast, but he obviously could. It's Nick Martin at the end of the day. So I'm not really trusting him in my top 5 at this stage. So here's number 6. Number 7, I have gone with Tristan Cherry, back in the big man up against Timmy English tonight. He's also a very valid VC option if you are an owner. It's just that the recent form he's in the last 4, he's only hit the 1 ton and dropped a lot of subpar 90s and 80s. But with a much better matchup, we've seen Ruckman against Tim English go extremely well. Brodie Grundy went 137 last week. Rowan Marshall a couple weekends ago went 129, and even Lloyd Meek went 120. And that's just within the last 4 weeks of versing Tim English. So he loves to give up these 120 plus scores against him. And even the recent data for Tristan Cherry himself, he went 129 against Tim English earlier in the year, back in round 1, I believe it was. So that gives us good data. Plus, even last year, if you even go back that far, he scored a 122 and a 129 against there. So he just puts up 120s against Tim English for fun. So he is also a valid option if you want to just have a safe 120 this tonight. But I think we're searching for a bit more ceiling. And just the form alone he's in currently, he doesn't look like himself, whether that's a North thing or that's actually himself. I've just dropped him down a few points there, just due to that fact. So yeah, I like him as an option at number 7. Number 8, I have the big boy Jordan Dawson up against Melbourne. He scored a 112 against them last year. We know Melbourne are a fairly good matchup for these guys that sort of float around, get a lot of +6s, are pretty good marks overhead as well. So Jordan Dawson should be safe as houses if you're looking for a safer captain option. You can always fall back onto him, but again, hasn't really shown that ceiling we're looking for in the past couple of weeks against easier matchups. So a little ways down on my captain's list. Number 9 is Tom Green. I like this pick, and he's highly owned in terms of, the captaincy's 50% selected this week. But I'm just not sure he's got this consistency what they're looking for. He's obviously been very up and down so far this season. He scored a 121 against the likes of West Coast Eagles earlier in the season, and even went 120 against them last year. So he's got good history against West Coast. I shouldn't cop any attention, as they never do. But yeah, he's very up and down, and it takes a bit for him to get on his day. So just not confident with him being in my top 5, because it could go very sour pretty quickly. He is prone to put up these 70s and 80s throughout this season, so I'm just staying away at this stage. Similarly with this next man, who is number 10 on my list, and that is Marcus Bontempelli. Could have an absolute blinder tonight. Again, another great VC option. North are the best matchup for midfielders in the last 10. They're just by far the easiest that we've seen, and we expect Marcus Bontempelli to be massive as we have. But again, the form in the last 4 weeks, particularly since a lot of us brought him in, has been pretty putrid, and he has had these decent matchups previously. He's just not the Bont that we're used to at the moment, so I just don't have the confidence there to back him, unfortunately. So for those reasons, he is a little bit down the list, but it could be a valid VC option if you would just want to take a stab in the dark and just roll into a safe Bailey Smith later on in the weekend. Then go for it. I don't think it will hurt you too much, because it could be a Bont 150 tonight. It could easily be that. If he just gets around the ball, has 25 touches, and kicks a couple goals, it could be going his way tonight. He had a 126 and a 117 against North last year. Obviously didn't play in the game early this year, unfortunately, due to injury. So He should be thirsty. He loves this game and loves playing against North, so he should be there at number 10. That is my top 10. I guess some guys I missed out on. Brodie Grundy's obviously the big guy that a lot of people are looking at the moment. Not in terms of massive captaincies, but his form's been ridiculous. Hasn't dropped below 110 in some time. He is up against the Twin Towers in Luke Jackson and Sean Darcy. Now, whether Sean Darcy is up and about for this game, I'm not 100% sure yet, just with teams not being announced. But so he should still go fine. The likes of Rowan Marshall went 119 against them last weekend, so it's not out of the question that he could go well, especially with his form. But I think just on the safety cautions, I think I like these guys that probably have a little bit higher of a ceiling with a bit of an easier matchup at this stage. So there's that. Not touching Max Gawn with that tougher matchup. Riley Bryan is the toughest matchup overall. Lockie Ash, I did like the looks of, but West Coast actually are a pretty tough matchup for halfbackers, particularly at Optus. They love to press up pretty hard and not allow this sideways chipping as much as they do at other grounds. Whether that's just a pure tactic from West Coast or it's just a coincidence. You think it would be the other way because Optus is quite a wide open ground. But also the fact that Lockie Whitfield is missing this game, and typically Lockie Ash and Lockie Whitfield seem to pass to each other a fair bit. So without B1 and B2, does he score well? I'm not 100% sure, and that's why I'm not backing him in my top 5 or even my top 10 at this stage. I still think he's a very good trading option, but he may not get the pop score that we're looking for. But again, it could backfire quite quickly. He could go absolutely massive with more responsibility back there without having Lockie Whitfield. Nick Dacos, I'm just not looking at. As much as I don't expect there to be a tag from a Chincotta or a George Hewitt, I just feel like they will have to put some time into him at some period in this game. Carlton on the canvas with how they are performing recently, they're gonna try and respond as best as possible, and the best way to try and respond is to really put a lot of time into Nick Dacos because he can really hurt you. So just not 100% sure I'm confident with him. And again, when he does cop attention, he is very prone to dropping these subpar scores like 80s and 90s. So not looking there. Nasaya has been obviously massive throughout the start of the year and probably should be a valid top 10 option. But again, it's the matchup I'm looking at. I really prioritize the matchup when I'm looking at my captaincies, not just based off pure player form. Hawks could very easily send a player to Nasaya to lock him down because we know how damaging he is. Sam Mitchell was a very smart coach, and I would not be surprised to see, one of our small forwards just running around with him just to keep him accountable, whether it's a Connor McDonald or even the likes of a Jack Ginnivan. One of those guys are probably going to stand next to him just to keep him accountable throughout the day. So not really expecting the biggest score from him. Jeremy Cameron also got a very good matchup and could have an absolute day out like Sam Darcy. I just like Sam Darcy a little bit more because he does that ruck stuff to get around the ball a little bit more often. So I just like him there. And he hasn't really shown us that massive ceiling recently. I think even when he's kicked bags of 6 and 7, he's only just ticked over the 100 mark. He's not really doing that a lot of other stuff around the ground, unfortunately. So yeah, not a huge fan on that. And I'm really starting to looking away from him at this stage, particularly when it's like, he has obviously the same matchup in round 24. I'm still looking at like that. Am I actually interested in that? If not, we'll see how this sort of plays out this weekend if it's something that I'll be doing later on. Besides that, realistically, Zach Merritt could return to form with a much better matchup, but I just couldn't back it up with his poor form of recent, off in the role that we're not fully familiar with. So I'm just not super keen on that at this stage. But again, could be a decent one if you just want to throw a dart at the board, and he obviously has a huge, massive ceiling of 150 in these better matchups. I probably wouldn't be trusting Matthew Kennedy. He has shown one game of a ceiling, but I do think there are a few better guys that have that really high ceiling that we're looking at rather than a 130. Really trying to search for those big guys at this stage. But that's probably about it in terms of captains. I covered off on a lot of the top guys, but let me know what you think of my top 5 or 10 top 10 captains. Let me know what you guys are going to be doing down below. At this stage, I will probably be going either Bailey Smith as my VC and then Brodie Smith as my stable, plus captain, just to get a 110. If Bailey Smith were to fall over, I don't expect it to happen. But I am also looking at, do I go a Bont tonight or a Cherry tonight to see if I can get that big score. Besides that, I really don't have any other guys that are in my top 5 at this stage, unfortunately. I've got Caldwell. I don't have Caldwell. I potentially want to trade him in, but I can't at this stage. Don't have Noah Anderson, and I don't have Sam Darcy either. So captain options are a little bit tough, but I still expect to have a decent week. Trades haven't changed at this stage. I'll see how sort of teams line up. If Zach Johnson does get named, then I'll probably would change this trade because I still think he can make decent money, and I don't think going from Zach Johnson to a Harry Rolston is really a much of an upgrade at the end of the day. They're both got very similar cash generation as long as they can hold their spot. So I'll see how the sort of trades go out. The only other option I would have is bringing in a red dot defender rookie at this stage to be able to field McCarthy, and then that would mean I can upgrade, maybe a Ned Long up to a Caldwell, or going a Callum Mills up to a Lockie Ash, or even a Caleb Daniel or Isaac Rankin up to a Myers as such, because I really like all 3 of those options. I just need to work out which is the way I'd go if that is the scenario that I go with at the end of tonight. So hopefully that answers all your questions, guys. Hopefully you have a great night, and hopefully you have a great weekend overall. But I will see you guys next weekend. All the best, guys. Cheers.